Hello, metalheads. This is Tobias of Vomitory, and you're watching RichardMetalFan.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Richard Metal Fan Interviews. This is episode number 140. And today's guest, we're talking to Tobias Gustafsson. He is the drummer for the band Vomitory, a death metal band from Sweden that's been around since 1989. Today we're going to be talking to him about what got him into metal, as well as the history of Vomitory, and he also plays drums for a band called Cut Up. And we're also going to be talking about the new Vomitory album, All Heads Are Gonna Roll. So, without further ado, let's go talk to Tobias. So what's up, guys? I'm here with Tobias Gustafsson from Vomitory and Cut Up, and probably a plethora of other bands I don't know about. So, how are you doing today, man?
I'm fine, thanks. How are you?
Doing pretty well. It's a lovely afternoon here where I'm at in the US. So, how's it over there in Sweden?
It's really nice weather here as well now.
Yeah, it's
We've been waiting all winter for the sun to come, so we've had some really a couple of really nice and sunny weeks here, and pretty warm for the time of this year. So it's been really good.
awesome. So, kind of like the format is, I want to talk about like your musical journey from where you start to now, and also do like a rundown of your discography. But take you back to young Tobias. So, growing up, what were the first bands that got you into metal? What made you want to start playing drums?
Uh, I wanted to play drums before I discovered metal. Um, I was I think I always wanted to play drums. For as far as I can remember, I was always fascinated and by drums, and I was when I saw a drum kit on the evening shows on the Friday nights where they had the big band. I always looked at the drummer, and I thought that the drum set always looked cool, uh, and so on. And I was using my mom's knitting needles as drumsticks, and so on. So I always wanted to play drums, I guess. And I discovered metal and heavy rock around 1980 through my older brother Urban, who is the guitarist of Vomitory. And I was, well, 80. I was 7 years old, something like that. 7 years old. Probably in 81. Let's say it was 81 or 82, maybe even. Yeah. With bands like Saxon and Iron Maiden, Accept, those bands, Judas Priest. Those were the bands that were most important back then. So, but I didn't start playing drums until I was 13, actually, when I got my first drum kit.
Yeah. Awesome. And I believe, were you in any bands before Vomitory? Because according to Metal Archives, I think your band before Vomitory was Cyrus, and you did like a Salt Out EP in '89.
Yeah, I play with Cyrus, but after that I play with a band called Eureka. We played more. I don't know how to describe it, but more fast heavy metal, speed metal, or with a hint of thrash in it. We were in some songs we were heavily influenced by Motorhead. They're heavy. I mean, they're faster songs. So I was playing in Eureka when I also joined Vomitory. So I play with those bands um, at the same time. But after a while, Eureka called it quits. So I continued with Vomitory. And before those bands, there was also, some loose, no real bands really, but jamming with some friends and so on.
Yeah.
So, but those were the first real bands that I was in.
Yeah. Yeah, and tell me about like starting up Vomitory, because I know you and your brother formed it in 1989.
Yeah, well, actually, I wasn't involved in forming the band. It was Urban and the vocalist bassist at the time, Ronnie Olsson. They formed the band in October 1989, and they tried out a couple of drummers in the beginning, and they had their first show booked, so they couldn't find a suitable drummer. So I don't remember if they asked me or if I offered them to help them out for this show only, which I did, and but I remained in the band. So I wasn't in the band since the the first second, but after a couple of months since the band started.
Awesome. So, tell me about like the first Vomitory album, which was Raped in Their Own Blood, which came out in '96. Tell me about like the writing and recording process. Like, what was the mind frame going into making the first Vomitory album?
Well, first of all, we were super stoked to even get a record deal, because when we started the band, that was not even on our map. We just wanted to play fast and brutal music because we enjoyed it. So we never aimed to record and release an album. But when we finally got the chance, it was it was a milestone for us. So we had a bunch of old songs at that time that we wanted to include on the album. So half of the songs on Raped in Their Own Blood are like songs that we already had from demos since before, a few of them, and then the other half of the songs were written exclusively for the album. And I think we just did what we always have done, that we wanted to make the best out of it and try to write and perform as good as possible on the album. So
Yeah, and I believe your first label that you were signed to was Fadeless Records. How did they find you guys?
I think it was through our bassist at the time, Thomas Bergqvist. He was in contact with Wilco, the owner of this label, a Dutch guy. Yeah, how it was back in those days. You were pen pals basically, and trading stuff and so on. So I think they had a very good they had a good friendship, and somehow Wilco offered us a deal after a while. So that's how it worked out, I think.
All right. And when you put out the Raped in Their Own Blood, did you like start touring outside of Sweden for the first time, or was it still just local?
Mostly it was local, uh, though we did. Um, no, it was mostly local. Yeah, we did some shows in Stockholm, which is at that time Stockholm was very far from us. So that was a bit exotic, you know. But it was mostly in Sweden. I don't think we ever went outside of Sweden at that point in '96. That came later.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course,
Well, no, I'm sorry, I'm lying to you now. First time we went, yeah, in '97, we did some shows in Germany and Belgium and Holland, I think. And that was when we had released our debut album, and we still hadn't released our second album. So yeah, we did play some shows outside Sweden. Yeah, that's
awesome.
right.
And then, of course, the next album, Redemption, usually with the debut album, you have like your entire life to write it, and there was a lot of hype with the first album. When it came time to making Redemption, did you felt like pressure to follow up to Raped in Their Own Blood?
Uh, yeah, I think so. But at the same times we were kind of relieved because we on Raped in Their Own Blood we have had most of those songs for so long, so it was kind of relieving to record them and release them on an album and then get rid of them in our repertoire, so to speak. So we were I think I wouldn't say that we felt any pressure, but we were rather excited instead to write new material. And I think you can hear a quite big leap in the sound and the development from our first album to our second album in terms of well, songwriting and the intensity in the songs and the overall speed in our music. And by then we had also a new bassist and a new vocalist, which also made a bigger impression in our sound, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, and then of course on this album you actually did some cover songs. I know you covered Godmawker's Ashes of Morning Life, which of course later on you would actually end up playing with them for a little bit. And I know you also covered Sodom and Napalm Death. What made you guys decide to cover do some covers on Redemption?
Well, originally it's only the Godmawker song on the album. The other ones are that you're referring to are probably the ones from the 10-inch vinyl mini LP that we did in '99. So, well, the reason why we did include the Godmawker song was simply because we didn't have enough songs to fill an album. Yeah. We had booked the studio and so on, and we were running out of time, and we couldn't come up with the songs fast enough. So, and we had played that song for quite a while in our live set. So we thought that why don't we include that one on this album so we can get make it a full-length album. So that's the main reason why we did it. But it's a fucking great song. So,
oh yeah,
and also a tribute to Godmawker because they weren't around at that time, and they are old friends of ours. So it was a cool thing to do anyway, I think.
Yeah, and I think it's a fucking great cover y'all did. But kind of going into the next album, Revelation Nausea, I love that album. What was that like going from Redemption to Revelation Nausea?
Well, there's another big step in development, even bigger than between the first two albums, I think, because that's on Revelation Nausea. That's where we definitely found and stabilized the sound that became the Vomitory sound, I would say. We also became a 4-piece band, and we have remained a 4-piece band since then.
Yeah.
Before that, we were 5-piece, but Eric took over the vocal duties along with playing the bass. So we were me on drums, Urban and Ulf on guitars, and Eric on bass and vocals. And we also intensified our sound even more on Revelation Nausea. A lot of more grind parts and blast beats and so on. Yeah, I think it's a very important album for in our history, I would say. And also, not least, it was the first album that we released on Metal Blade Records.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was also a big thing for us, and a fresh restart of the band. So yeah, Revelation Nausea, I love that album too.
Yeah, it was kind of like my introduction of Vomitory, and I guess with the vocal change, change now with Eric sort of stepping up as lead vocals. Do you feel like nervous at all? Because anytime when a band changes vocalist, there's always like there's pressure of like, will it work and won't it work? In this case, it fucking works.
Yeah, I don't know. It was a little bit. We thought we were thinking of getting another vocalist because it didn't really work out with the one that we had at the moment. But which was a shame because Jussi Lina, who did the vocals on Redemption, he had an absolutely killer voice. So, but Eric said he wanted to give it a try, and we rehearsed like as a 4-piece for quite some time, and we said, yeah, let's do it like this. And so yeah, it was of course, as you say, when a band changes vocalists, that's a very crucial thing for any band, I think, since the vocals are such a
it's like the main forefront,
big part. Yeah, and a big part of any band's sound. So, but I think it definitely worked for us, and yeah.
Yeah, of course. I know you had like 2 singers before that, and you didn't have to go through another singer. So I guess Eric was like, "Fuck it, I'll sing," so that way that we wouldn't have to go through another member change.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I wonder if it was hard for him at first to like sing and play bass at the same time, but I think he managed to pull it off well.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's just it takes some practice, of course, but I mean, Eric he's a good musician, and he pulled it off pretty fast, I would say.
Yeah. And then, of course, going into the next album, Blood Rapture, the first time it was like a quick turnaround from Revelation Nausea to Blood Rapture, since it was like released like a year apart. Did you like start writing for Blood Rapture right after
Yeah.
Revelation Nausea?
I can't remember, but yeah, probably we did, since they came out so close. Yeah, yeah, we must have done that. We were probably quite productive, and you know, had the how do you say it? Yeah, we probably felt inspired, and you know, we had done some really cool tours and so on, and yeah, we were pretty much wrapped up in the whole thing. So I guess we started to write, yeah, pretty fast. Still, though, when we recorded Blood Rapture, we as usually we still didn't have all the songs completely finished when we started recording the album. There were always a few parts missing in a couple of songs, and we also wrote like 1 or 2 songs in the studio for Blood Rapture. So that was quite stressful, but it turned out pretty good in the end, because one of the songs that we wrote in the studio was Chaos Fury, the opening track, and
hell of an
that's
opener.
Yeah, that's a it is, and it's been it's a live classic by now. We almost always play it live. We I can't think of many shows that we didn't play it live.
Yeah, and if you got to play it, because if you don't, I'm sure people would riot.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah. Yeah, and of course, I know last year was, of course, the 20-year anniversary of that album. So, how do you feel about it now, over 20 years later?
I think it's a fucking great one. I love it, and I think also it's that album meant quite a lot for Vomitory, because around that time the name grew quite a lot, and we gained a lot of new fans, and we did some touring as well in Europe, and yeah, and also
Nice.
I think it's a fucking solid album. It's really killers, no fillers.
Yeah, just no bullshit right to the point.
Yeah.
Yeah, and of course, one of my favorite songs on the album is "Blessed and Forsaken." I think it's as simple as it gets, but it's really infectious. It pretty much loves like the transition between riffs and the tempo changes, and the heaviness is all there. And I just love like the blast beating transitions that you do from one to another. It just gives like the song pretty much a really big boost and sort of like the varieties.
Yeah, it's a very effective song if you want.
Yeah.
It's the same there, no bullshit, just uh, yeah, just it's a killer song.
Yeah. And then your next album, Primal Massacre, I think is a pretty good album. And I know next year will be the 20-year anniversary of that album. So is there like a chance to celebrate it somehow? Maybe throw in some like deep cuts that you haven't played from that in a while?
Well, we always try to pick songs from every album into our live set. Uh, Unfortunately, I think we've only played at least during the last few years since we reformed again in 2019. We played the title track Primal Massacre and also Gore Apocalypse. I think I think those are the only two songs that we have played from that album. I mean, we could have played a lot more because I think that Primal Massacre is a little bit overlooked in our discography because it's a it's a great album.
Yeah. And also that same year in 2004, you did another project, God Among Insects with a worldwide death. Death. How'd you decide to form that band?
That was you meet some people and you become friends. Uh, During drunken circumstances, and um, people were fans of each other's bands, and hey, let's start a band. So it was the guitarist there, Kay. It was his initiative to form this band. I think he was at some Vomitory show in his hometown, and he was like blown away. Oh, you're a fucking killer drummer. We need to play together, and so on. So yeah, let's play together because it's always fun to play with other musicians. I think. So he asked around a little bit, and all of a sudden we had recruited Caligula, the vocalist from Dark Funeral, as our
Yeah.
vocalist, and Thomas Elofsson, who is now playing guitar in Hypocrisy. And so he played bass in that band, and we did two albums with that band. The original plan with God Among Insects was that we would play one live show and then split up.
Yeah.
I don't know for what reason really. Well, we did that album, and we should play one show. But then after that one show, we were like, no, this was so fun. We keep going, and we got quite a lot of nice shows here in Sweden. I don't think we ever went abroad with that band, but we played some cool local shows. So, and after a while, we decided to make album number 2,
Yeah. Zombie
which we
Nomicon.
did, and yeah, it's a pretty cool album, I think. I'm not
Yeah.
so fond of the first one because it's the songs are, well, some songs are pretty cool, but I don't like the production of it. It's no, but the second one is really cool, Zombinomicon. And then we played some more live shows, but after a while we decided to call it quits.
Yeah.
Because then we have had our fun. And at the same time, when we split up God Among Insects, me and Kay continued to play together, and we formed the Torture Division together with Jörgen Sandström,
Nice.
who played in the Grave originally, and he was also the bass player for Entombed for many years.
Cool. Cool. So I think then going back into Vomitory in 2007, you did Terrorize, Brutalize, Sodomize. It's like a tongue twister in itself. So what was that whole process like, making that album?
That was a bit different because by then our longtime guitarist Ulf Dahlgren had decided to leave the band after, like, I don't know, 14, 15 years in the band. He left in 2005, actually. So we recruited Peter Östlund, who is still in the band as a guitarist. So when he came on board, the whole band got new blood in the band means new energy, and we definitely got some new energy with Peter in the band. And he also contributed with the writing quite a lot, which was nice. And I think that Terrorized, Brutalized, Sodomized turned out a real killer album. It's really fast and aggressive, and yeah, I love it.
Yeah, and I feel like it's like your more kind of like technical and more melodic album to date, especially like melodic riffs on like Heresy and Flesh Passion are just really great. It sort of like beeps up the intensity and gives the songs a much more sense of kind of like maturity in a way.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
Yeah, but also like one of my other favorite songs are Internal Trail of Courses. And I feel like it doesn't stop the relentless attack until like the Burning Black. But I feel like that kind of like slows things down. It almost kind of feels like riffs that almost sound almost kind of like Obituary meets Bolt Thrower, or in a way.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and then next album I want to talk about is Carnage Euphoria. Yeah, I love that album. Tell me about that.
Yeah, I love it too. That's a very special album for me, personally, I think, because and that was released in 2009, which marked the 20th anniversary of the band, which was I think that's quite a big achievement for any band, and I was very proud of that, and the other guys were also proud of it, of course. And I think we were by then Peter had grown into the band a lot more, and we had done some touring as well, and we were a much more solid unit, I would say. And the songs on that album are very, very solid as well. They're all great songs. It's Carnage Euphoria is definitely a favorite Vomitory album of mine.
That's great.
Yeah.
Right, and then of course your last album, Opus Mortis 8. Hey, I think that was a pretty good album. I know that was the last Vomitory album that we would hear for a while. So what was the thought process going into making that album?
I think by then we were I don't remember if we maybe now when I look back to it, I think that it turned out I think we complicated things a little bit too much. in certain songs or certain parts for no good reason really. But that's how, when at least the songs that I wrote, which was most of them, I wanted to, I don't know, I probably wanted to make them more technical maybe, but I mean, it's a great album and it has some really, really great songs. But and the production is maybe a little bit too clean as well. But what our mindset was when we wrote it, I don't know. Probably we had a little bit too high ambition, maybe. We should have kept it a little bit more simple, perhaps. But it turned out pretty damn good anyway. I mean, the opener, Rigorg in the Morgue, is a song we always have played live ever since. So
yeah, and then of course, yeah, go on.
No, go on, you.
All right, so kind of like when you put it out and then you toured a little bit, but then of course eventually you did call it quits for a while. Wow, what made you this guys decide to like call it quits at that time?
Because that was something that had you know, that feeling had grown for a couple of years prior to 2013. It became more of a burden to do the band. It was for me, it felt like a heavy weight on my shoulders rather than something that I enjoyed doing. I mean, it should be fun doing this, or else there's no point in doing it. And that's what I felt at that point, because it was getting more and more difficult to make things work. You know, everybody, you know, with everybody's everyday life, because none of us, we all had, you know, normal day jobs, and we still do. So sometimes it was difficult to make things work, and also families. We had the kids were small at that time, and so on. So, but also I think that we didn't have the drive anymore to keep going forward. I think the fire just burnt out. Yeah. So it was a quite easy decision, I think, when we decided to call it quits. And our plan was to call it quits and then never ever reunite, because we think that's fucking lame when bands split up and then come back. I mean, if it's over, it's over.
Yeah.
But here we are now.
Yeah, so sort of like careful what you say.
Yeah, never. I've learned that never say never.
Yeah, yeah, and kind of like during the breakup, I know you did like some other projects. I know you did the project Hate around that time. You also released the last Vomitory album. You did Bleeding, the New Apocalypse. Tell me about like that, making that album.
Yeah, that was in 2009, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I know you put out the first album in 2011.
No, the Project Hate had been releasing albums since the early 2000s.
Oh,
so yeah. So I was joining them for this album, which was their, I don't know, maybe 6th or 7th album or something like that.
Oh yeah, it was eighth album from Metal Archives. I kind of fucked up. I thought it was a new band you had at that time. My fault there.
Oh, but that was Kay, who I played with in God Among Insects. the project Hate is K's project and band. So he asked me if I wanted to play drums on the next Project Hate album, and I said yes, because it was a bit of a challenge for me and something a little bit different from what I was used to doing. So yeah, that was a really nice experience, and I remember I it's probably the album that I practiced most before recording it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say that. So yeah, it was a nice recording session, and I think the album turned out really good. And I was supposed to continue with them and do the next album as well, but
Yeah.
at the time when the songs were finished, I didn't really feel that the songs were as good as on that album that I played on, and also there were a lot of stuff happening with Vomitory, and I felt I didn't have the time, so I said no, thanks.
Yeah. Yeah. Because
So
you're
they
saying,
hired Dirk Verburen instead,
yeah.
who's playing with Megadeth now. Yeah,
Yeah.
and he's been playing with them ever since.
Cool. Cool. And I think you're also on the 2012 Project Hate album, the Cadaverous Retaliation Agenda. It said that you played acoustic guitars on there.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, that's the album after um, the one that I played on. Uh, I asked Kay if I could still participate by not playing drums, but because I had an idea, he was playing the demos to me, and I well, obviously I'd heard the demos since I was supposed to play drums on them on the album, but I had an idea that this part would be great with an acoustic guitar in the background, strumming. And he was like, "Yeah, that's a fucking great idea." So I recorded the acoustic guitar part for that album
Yeah.
on only that short, small part in that song.
Yeah. And I'm surprised because I never knew you played guitar. I always thought you were always a drummer.
No, I play guitar as well.
Nice. Nice. And then I also noticed in 2013, you also, of course, joined Godmawker for almost a decade. Because funny enough, I know you did the cover on Redemption. How did you end up joining Godmawker?
Well, they are from our area, and we have known them since 88, 89 maybe. And they were. We actually asked them if they wanted to, because when we were splitting up Vomitory, we did a farewell show here in our main city, Karlstad in Sweden, and we asked the Godmawker guys if they wanted to be one of the support bands, because they had done some how was it? Yeah, they released one album in '91, I think, the Winter Long, and by then the band had already split up, and around 2013, I think it was during 2013, that there was some label doing a reissue of that album, and they wanted to have some bonus track on it. So they were going to re-record an old song that they haven't released before. So they asked me if I wanted to play the drums on that one, because their original drummer, he doesn't play drums anymore, and he hasn't done for, well, since they disbanded the band. So I played the drums on that track, and that's where the idea came that we should ask Godmawker to reform for this farewell show with Vomitory. and they did. So I played drums for Godmawker first, and then it was General Surgery, and then it was Vomitory at that show. And then after that show, Godmawker continued to play live. No plans on writing new material, just to go out and play live at festivals and so on. So we did that for a few years. We got some really cool festival shows in well, many parts of Europe, and as late as last year, we actually played one show in Czech Republic at Obscene Extreme, really cool festival.
Nice.
So yeah, so we're still doing Godmawker every now and then, but we're not an active band, so to speak.
Yeah, it's just for fun. It's just a hobby kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then I know you also do session work, because I know in 2016 you played drums on Amon Amarth's Viking album. Like, I love that album. Like, nobody ever talks about that. Tell me about how did like Johan Hegg and the boys decided to like get you to play drums on the album?
Yeah, we have known the Amon Amarth guys since 2002, when Vomitory and Amon Amarth did a European tour for a month together. So we got along really well with those guys, and when they needed a new drummer in 2015, they asked me if I wanted to join them, plain and simple. Which I wasn't really sure if I wanted to do it, but I rehearsed with them a couple of times, and but finally I decided, because they really wanted me to be their new drummer. It was not only a session thing, actually. It was a full band membership. So eventually I decided to join them, and yeah, it felt great. So we started working together on the songs for the Jones Viking album, and we went to England to Andy Sneap and recorded it there. And during this time, there was a big European tour being planned and booked, and also tours in the US and so on. But the closer we got, the I don't know what happened. I put too much stress on myself, so I basically I couldn't play. I couldn't play drums, you know. Well, I could play, but something happened in here. I've never experienced anything like it before or after. It was some kind of meltdown. So you know, the train was leaving, and I had to tell the guys I can't do this, and they obviously saw it too, and they were, of course, devastated that they had to let me go, and had to find a new drummer with such short notice. But yeah, they solved it in the end. So I actually recommended them to check out Jocke Wallgren, who is their permanent drummer now since 2016. And they checked him out, and they tried him, and yeah, he got the job.
Yeah. Yeah, and then tell me about, like, I know also you did a Cut Up. I know, kind of like, I'm going back. I know in 2015 you released a debut album, Forensic Nightmares. How did like Cut Up decide to form?
Well, Cut Up was formed pretty fast after we had disbanded Vomitory, because me and Eric, we wanted to keep playing together. So we decided to start a new band, basically, which we did, and we started to write immediately, and we also got Metal Blade on board. So we we wrote the songs for the first album pretty fast and recorded it in the fall of 2014, I think, and released it in 2015 on Metal Blade Records.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a freaking ass beater of an album. Yeah, especially like
And
that. I like the album cover with like the guy like with the mangled up and dismembered and shit.
yeah, that's pretty twisted.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know he also did the second album, Wherever They May Rot. I think is another great album. Tell me about like that making the second album.
Well, I think that one came about pretty fast as well. We just kept going with what we had started. I think we developed because we had two lead vocalists in Cut Up, Eric and also Andreas, vocalist guitarist. I think we developed the dual vocal thing a little bit more on Wherever They May Rot, for the better, of course.
Yeah.
And I think it was I would say maybe a more diverse. No, I don't know. I don't know if it's more diverse or. Yeah, but I think both are absolutely great albums, great songs, and yeah, great production and so on. So yeah, I'm really proud of those.
Yeah, and I know it's been 2017, so about 6 years since the last Cut Up album. Is there any plans to make a new album? Because I know it's Metal Archive says like Cut Up's like on hold.
Yeah, Cut Up is on hold for now because actually right now it's only me and Eric left in Cut Up,
Yeah, the
and
other
we
two
are
guys left.
yeah, they left. So since me and Eric were so busy with Vomitory, and that takes all of our time right now, and it wouldn't make sense to have. Well, we don't have time to have one more band beside Vomitory right now. So, but we will see. Maybe we will do something new in the future. I don't know when or even if, but the band still exists, but it's
Yeah.
on hold.
Right. And then I know your last thing you did before the Vomitory got back together. I know in 2019 you worked with Nephilim and did the Burning Warpath to Hell EP. Tell me about like that.
Yeah, I joined Niflheim in 2017. That was for one show only to start with. They were going to play a big metal festival in the Netherlands, and Hell Butcher, the vocalist, he had called me a couple of times before during a few years to ask me if I could help them out at a tour. I remember, but it didn't work out for me, because I had already stuff booked with other bands and so on. So I declined those, but this time it worked. So I decided to help them out on this show. And it worked out so well. So after the show, they asked me, hey, can you do the rest of the summer festivals with us? Because this was fucking great. And I thought it was great too. And it's I mean, they're great guys to be around, and always crazy things are happening, and every day is a new adventure with Niflheim. So I thought, why not? So I joined them on a temporary basis during that summer, but in the fall, they were starting to talk about a new album, and I said, and they asked me if I wanted to play on the new album also. So I said, yeah, let's do it. So I guess that there and then I became like a full member of the band. I played with them for 5 years. In 2019, in April, we recorded a new album, which still isn't released. So that Burning Warpath to Hell is from that recording session. So that one.
Yeah.
It's a shame because it's a really nice,
Yeah.
really good album.
Yeah, cool. And then I know in 2017, like Vomitory, or 2017, 2018, Vomitory got back together. What made you guys decide to come back?
It was we got back together first time in 2017, and that was because uh, the Summer Breeze Festival in Germany, which is a big open air festival. They were celebrating their 20th anniversary, and also they were going to have one of their stages dedicated to the the um, the head of the festival, because he passed away in 2013,
Yeah.
and he was also the previous label manager of Metal Blade Records Europe. So he was the one who signed Vomitory in to Metal Blade in 1999, and he was a great guy, and he did a lot of things for Vomitory, and put us on some really great tours in the early 2000s and so on. So they asked us if we wanted to do a one-off tribute show to honor the memory of Michael Trengert. And they had asked a whole lot of other bands that had worked closely with Michael. So we were like, we couldn't say no to that. There was, we wanted to honor the memory of Michael. So we said, yeah, let's do it. So that's where after that show, because that show was it was a great show, and the band sounded killer, and we said that maybe we should keep the door open for more shows in the future. And we're like, yeah, maybe. And then Eric came with the idea that we should reunite temporarily again during 2019 to play live shows, as many as possible, to to celebrate the 30th anniversary of the band. So we did that, and it was a very, very successful year, and we played a lot of shows. And there were a lot of shows that we couldn't play because there simply wasn't time enough. So we decided to extend this temporary reunion into 2020. But then the pandemic hit, so everything got canceled or postponed and postponed again. And so it was during the pandemic we started to think that maybe it kind of sucks to come back to the stages again after 3 years and do 30th anniversary shows. So we started talking about maybe we should get back together as a real band again and write a new album. So I think it was during the summer of 2021 that we decided to start working on the new album.
Yeah, all heads are gonna roll, which I think is a really kick-ass album. Was it meant to sort of like try to pick up after the last album, or with being it has been like over a decade since the last Vomitory album, kind of like a fresh new start for the band in a way?
Yeah, but well, we didn't want to pick up where we left, but rather go back to the albums of the early 2000s, like Revelation, Nausea, and Blood Rapture. I think make it more straightforward and brutal. No, try not to complicate things too much, but trying to keep it a little bit more simple and which I think we did very well.
Yeah, and what did you really miss and sort of like not miss about all the time from the music of Vomitory?
Well, I missed playing with Vomitory, of course, and I mean it's of all the bands that I have been in, Vomitory is the one that is obviously that's closest to my heart and will probably always be. So I missed, but I didn't miss doing interviews, for example. No offense, but
None taken.
uh, and all the the work that is not actually involving music, the administration and that kind of stuff that takes time, that is not so fun. I did not miss that, but that's part of it as well. If you have to do those things as well to be able to get out and play live, which is the ultimate thing, I think,
Yeah, and I
to do
especially
as a
yeah,
band, play
yeah.
live on stage.
Yeah. And I also love like the album, like I said before. I love like the title track. It's really kind of almost reminds you a little bit of Slayer. It's pretty catchy but still vomitory. With this new album, did you wanted to change something in the writing process of the new songs?
Yes, a little bit. Like I said before, that we wanted to try to keep it more simple and more straightforward, taking inspiration from like Blood Rapture, Primal Massacre, and Revelation Nausea. But also, we decided, even before we started writing, we decided to try to focus more on getting the choruses really memorable and make them stand out more than they had done previously in our songs. We always had choruses in our songs, more or less, but we thought they needed to be more more memorable and more obvious to the listener, and I think we pulled that off really well on this album.
Yeah. And listening to All Heads Are Gonna Roll, what are some of like the characteristics that you would consider to be sort of like the greater advantages to the new album?
I don't know,
Yeah.
maybe the chorus thing. That's a good thing, but also it's a very diverse album, and I think all the songs they have a very strong identity on their own. Um, uh, yeah, I think it's very difficult for me to pick one favorite song or three favorite songs, because I think they're all great.
Yeah. Yeah, and what do you think is like the most important skill for you to have as an artist? How do you pretty much stay like inspired and motivated as like a drummer? Because I know as the drummer you got to like keep the beat and the tempo and everything. So what is like your like motivation to play drums, and pretty much how do you like write your drum parts?
uh, I think it's important to listen um, to other drummers, obviously, and other music, of course. Uh, I don't know, but I mean, I just love playing drums, and I, it's hard to say.
All right, and kind of like in the end to wrap things up, what's next for Vomitory? Have you got like any tours in the works? And is there a chance maybe you could bring Vomitory to the States one day for a tour? We'd love to have you. I mean, I am going to see you next year at Maryland Death Fest. So is just anything else with the release of the new album that you'd like to plug?
Well, yeah, we're doing a number of festivals in Europe during this summer. And in September, we're going on a European tour for a month. That tour will be announced soon, I hope, with dates and what other bands that are on that tour. And then we're going to Mexico in November, and we're also working on a tour in Asia in November. And yeah, as you said, we're playing at Maryland Death Fest in Baltimore next year in May. And I really, really hope that we can make a US tour, or at least some more dates than just that one festival.
Yeah,
That
just
would
promise
be,
me you'll squeeze an Atlanta date.
it shouldn't be impossible.
Uh, but yeah, just thank you, Tobias, for this interview. It's just any final words you want to say to close this out?
Well, thanks to everyone that has supported us, and thanks for all the nice words that we have been receiving since we announced our comeback, and since we released our first singles from the new album, and also now when the whole album is finally released. It's been really overwhelming to the feedback that we've got. So we really can't wait to get out there and play live again, and bang our heads together with the fans, and hopefully even have some beers together.
Yeah, hell yeah.
Really looking forward to that, and obviously I really hope we can make it to the US hopefully next year.
Yeah. Yeah, have you ever toured the US at all, or no?
No,
Oh,
never. We've only played one show, and that was at Maryland Death Fest in 2007. That's
wow.
the only US show Vomitory has ever played. It's a shame. So we definitely need to do some touring there.
Yeah, yeah, we'll welcome you with open arms.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. So everybody, Tobias from Vomitory, we'll see you next time.